Okay, guys, the highlights from Thursday. I'm sorry I'm late. There's GreatStockPicks.com chat room review here. Had to take my son to the doctor this afternoon, and so I did not trade the afternoon. I left it kind of in the middle of the day. But here's the calls I made today. I called FCX. You know what? Let me give you the reason for the call first. If you look at the daily, let me pan out a little bit here. You had the big gap down yesterday, closed near its lows, and then gap down again today. And oftentimes, when you get everybody and their mother thinking short, plus it had nice support at 31 back here on the daily chart. My thinking was it opened at 31.27. My thinking was it might come down, take out all the stops below 31, and then reverse and be multi-day up. Okay, not to digress, but let me show you Apple real quick today. Everybody and their mother were super bearish on Apple. I don't understand that this is a little bit of a different chart, but the psychology is the same. Everybody and their mother were bearish on Apple today, and then it gapped down. And I told everybody in chat this could be one of our bounce play gap down strategy setups. I didn't trade Apple, but what it basically means is when you're already down several days in a row and then you gap down, let's switch to 5-minute candles on Apple. Oftentimes, you gap down and sell off and get a quick reversal, and it takes out the high and runs. Okay, so these are people chasing this short after 3 or 4 days down, and and listening to all the bearish news or whatever, and you get a massive reversal. Look what happened. That's exactly what happened. So again, Apple and FCX, not the same chart, not the same story by any stretch, but that was my thinking. Okay, was that you might have the same scenario, especially with the daily support in that area. So FCX, I went ahead and called long at 30.87. Somewhere in here, somewhere down near the low of the day, and the stop was below the low of the day. The stop was below this candle, 30.57. So it's 30 cents risk. Here's what happens. It finally breaks 31, and remember, the early high was 31.33. If we get to 31.34, I'm thinking, hey, we get a short squeeze, and it couldn't do it, but it held on and had another chance, and really thought we were going to rip right here. Right here, I thought we had the big one, right? Look, it went to 31.32. I'm looking for a 31.34 for a massive rip. Didn't get it. I did sell some for 40-cent gain and killed the rest flat, okay? And it didn't do much the rest of the day, kind of grinded sideways. Probably be on bounce watch tomorrow, but, I didn't love the way it acted today. But, again, I got 40 cents early on some of my shares, flat on the rest. All right, all my other calls from the day real quick. LNG. Let me try to type that again. You can see the nice high volume breakout today on the daily. I'll show you where I called it. Unfortunately, I didn't have this on watch, okay? So I would love to say I called it down here after the initial gap up and sell-off. That's a great little turn right there, but I wasn't even watching it. I'm not even sure. I think this volume spike here caught my attention. So when I saw it at 17.25, I looked and I noticed the early high was at 17.27. I was hoping for some kind of little mini base before it broke, which I got, and I'll show you that in a second. But then I looked at the daily also, and keep in mind, you had this high back here that was 17, let me get this right, 1750. So we're in the 1720s, and a 5-day break, I thought, hey, might get us through that 1750 recent high, and we had nice volume. Okay, let's go to 2-minute candles to show you when it got up to that area why I still felt okay calling it. So, again, the reversal down here is the best place, but I didn't even have it on watch. The volume caught my eye. I looked at the chart on several time frames like I just showed you, and then I saw this little mini 2-minute candle base. So I was comfortable calling LNG on the high of day break, 17.28, and the worst case stop, only a dime below this tight base on 2's, 17.18. Look what happens. There's the break, and ends up going to 17.60, pulls back, doesn't even come close to the stop, and ends up ripping end of day. And look at that, closing near the highs. I guess I could switch to 5s so you see it easier. Unfortunately, I was a seller up in this area because I knew I had to go take my son to the doctor this afternoon. But, this is one of those that as long as it's holding, you can hold and see what it does before the close. And hopefully some of our members, I haven't talked to them, I'll talk to them tomorrow, held and sold into that final rally at the close, and the daily looks pretty good there now. So anyway, a nice 75-cent move in our favor on 10 cents risk. Let's see, my other calls, MDRX. Probably won't give as many details on the rest of these. MDRX I called over this base here, and it kind of feels like chasing. Let me get that off there, because it had already made this big move, but it had put in this tight base, and it had this volume coming in, and it's super beaten up the last few days. So I thought this might get a rally, and I went ahead and called it long at 11:23. Let me get that right. I believe 11:23. That doesn't sound right. I think it was more like 11:26 right there, with the stop at 11:39. So anyway, it held. Something doesn't seem right here. Stop at 11:39. That doesn't make sense. It went to 11:39. 11:26 was the entry. I believe the stop was just down below this base, probably about 8 cents below. So anyway, that's nothing to brag about, but it still worked. It didn't go up much, but it still worked. That might have been all my calls for the day. Akamai, sorry, I called Akamai, AKAM. I missed the early gap up. I'll tell you what, real quick. You know what? I'm going to show you my favorite setup in the world. I made another chart. Another video before showing my favorite setup in the world. Akamai did it yesterday. I'm so embarrassed because I told everybody in chat, hey, Akamai is giving my favorite setup, and somehow I skillfully missed it. But real quick, today, after the initial pop on volume and the rally, I called it on kind of a little mini base break here at 38.79, and it went over 39. It didn't stop out, but it certainly wasn't a big deal. Went up maybe 20, 30 cents from my call. Real quick, while I have this up, I know I'm digressing. Akamai yesterday, big sell-off, a little hiccup bounce, and then another push down, big volume, whole number right here, and it was at the 200-day, okay? And if you've seen it, I'll take today's candle out of it so you can see it. It was hitting the purple line here, which is my 200-day. That's basically the perfect setup. If you ever see that, it's a great place to try to nibble on some shares. And again, I remember now the reason I missed it. I was waiting for a push below 35 and sort of wash and rinse, and it didn't do it. And I should have grabbed it on my favorite secondary 5s entry there over 35.12 and ended up going to 35.80. And look what it did today if anyone held it. But anyway, that wasn't the point of this video. I'm trying to cover today's calls. And then late in the day, before I left, I called MWW over this base 577. It looked like this when I called it, thinking it could get through the high of the day and then continue. Had a nice volume spike a couple days ago. Pretty beaten up stock. And I thought this might start to rally, maybe a little short covering. So 577, I think 571 was my stop. And you can see what happened here. It looks like after I left the house, went to 577 and didn't follow through. So that one looks like a late day stop out for any of the members. But that's the entire list of my calls today. I'm going to quit babbling and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.